Gavin and I went from youthful deep affection to mutual weariness in 7 years. When he loved me, he wished he could cut out his heart and give it to me. After he changed his heart, he would spend lavishly on his white moonlight without regard for the occasion, fearing she might suffer the slightest grievance. Later, I had people collect evidence and sued to recover our marital joint property, turning them into laughingstocks in our circle. On the day his white moonlight had a mental breakdown, Gavin hoarsely questioned me, "Lynn, if you hate me so much, why don't you divorce me?" I sneered, "You trampled on my feelings, hurt my son, misused our marital joint property, and still want to walk away unscathed to pursue new happiness? You're dreaming." I was born into wealth, arrogant in my youth, with few friends I could truly confide in. Only Gavin, who grew up with me, played with me. At 3 years old, when I couldn't endure the hardship of learning piano, it was Gavin who took me to run away from home. At 6, when the dog that grew up with me suddenly passed away, neither my parents nor my brother cried, only Gavin held me, crying even more heartbrokenly than I did. At 15, when I was going abroad to study, Gavin had already started learning to take over the family business and had to stay in New York. But at the airport, when I clung tightly to his lapel and wouldn't let go, he still resolutely accompanied me abroad. On the day of my coming-of-age ceremony, we drank and made a mistake, resulting in an unexpected pregnancy. Gavin, facing pressure from both families, said to me that if I wanted to, we could have the baby and learn together how to be parents. In the first half of my life, he carefully held my hand and walked with me. But later, in the 7th year of marriage, when I was pregnant with our second child, the light in his eyes when he looked at me suddenly vanished. When I took our son to the company to find him, I heard him instructing Brian, "Notify the organizers that I will attend tonight's charity auction gala. Also, arrange more work, I don't want to go home these days." Brian habitually asked, "Do I need to inform Madam?" Gavin paused, "Tell her I won't be back tonight." He sighed, half complaining, "I don't know when Lynn will grow up, it's always me coaxing her. I'm a bit tired." My hand stopped on the doorknob. Our son Leo, puzzled, looked up at me, "Mom, aren't we going in?" I shook my head and took him away. Gavin had now fully taken over GS, he was too busy. I should give him more personal space. I comforted myself this way. That night, Gavin indeed didn't return. But in the middle of the night, my brother Ethan called. "Lynn, Gavin was photographed by paparazzi. Do we need to suppress the buzz?" I opened the app, and sure enough, the news about Gavin was everywhere. GS leader auctions sky-high necklace for top starlet Vivian marital change? GS president splurges on new love. I gripped my phone tightly, but my voice was calm. "Brother, no need for now." The bond between Gavin and me from childhood to adulthood still held that bit of trust. But I still changed clothes and had the driver take me to the YJ villa. If Gavin was too busy to go home, he would stay there nearby. When I arrived, the first-floor living room lights were still on. I faintly heard soothing music. I entered the password and walked in. Inside, the sofa had been moved aside. In the large cleared space, a young girl was dancing gracefully to the music. Agile, passionate, like an elf straight into the human world. And Gavin sat by the fireplace, holding a red wine glass. His gaze on the girl was very focused, the dim yellow light spilling over him, as if plating him with gold. He looked mysterious and noble. It was just like when I was 16, participating in an international piano competition, and he sat in the front row watching me. Noticing my presence, the dancing girl exclaimed and stopped. Stammering, she said, "Mrs. Gavin." Don't misunderstand. Only then did Gavin turn his head, his gaze falling on me. "Why are you here at this time?" He took off his coat and came over to drape it on me. "If you want to see me, you can call, I'll come to you." I clenched my fists, quietly looking at him. "Gavin, won't you explain?" He rubbed my head, helplessly yet indulgently saying, "It was just a momentary diversion, if you don't like it, I'll make her disappear. You know, I would never do anything to wrong you." I wasn't appeased. He smiled carelessly, as if this was the most ordinary thing. I suddenly remembered our wedding when I was 18. That year, I was pregnant before marriage and not yet of legal age. Everyone suggested I have the child abroad first, then return home for the wedding when of age. But Gavin was unwilling. Because of his youthful carelessness, he felt immensely guilty for making me endure the hardship of pregnancy. He didn't want me to quietly give birth without status. He hoped that both the marriage and the child would come amid the expectations and blessings of family and friends. We returned to the country and held a grand wedding of the century. I had attended countless banquets with him. He had seen me in all kinds of haute couture dresses. But on the wedding day, wearing a pure white wedding gown, arm in arm with my father, walking to him, he still cried like a child. At the time, I thought, so marrying the beloved girl really does make one cry. How much Gavin must love me. Now, after just 7 years, he would rather find other diversions than come home to face me. I was very sad. But in the first 20+ years of my life, the name Gavin had been deeply engraved into my being. I was unwilling to easily condemn him. So when he indulgently pinched my cheek like in childhood, I just aggrievedly said, "Don't let there be a next time." That night, all news about Gavin disappeared. That top starlet also vanished from the internet. This incident seemed to cause no ripples. Gavin started coming home every day. He accompanied our eldest son Leo with homework. He did prenatal education for the little second one in my belly. He would also massage my legs at night. We never mentioned that incident again. I thought, perhaps marriage is supposed to be like this. After passion cools, love turns into family affection. Isn't that so? Until Gavin missed our son's parent-teacher meeting. Leo, at just 7, had skipped to 5th grade and won gold awards in children's Go competitions and programming contests. He was the pride of the Gavin family. Gavin had always valued his son's education and never missed a school event. So when Leo called me from school, his voice was full of grievance. "Mom, there are 32 kids in class, and only my parent didn't come." Dad clearly promised to hurry back. I quickly ordered WJ's afternoon tea and had it delivered to the school. But I couldn't reach Gavin. Only at night did Brian call, saying Gavin had a temporary matter and needed to return 2 days later. The next day, my mom and I had planned to go to the beauty salon together. Just as we went up to the 2nd floor, I heard my usually intellectual and gentle mom fiercely arguing with someone. "Helen, my son-in-law is just working, don't speculate wildly." Helen sneered, "My child saw it. At the Middle East Economic Forum, Mr. Gavin personally carried Miss Vivian to the hospital and reportedly stayed by her bedside all night." Although the news was blocked afterward, who among those present doesn't know? Only you mother and daughter are kept in the dark. Last time at the auction, Mr. Gavin bought a 200 million necklace for Miss Vivian. This time in the Middle East, he bought a sky-high yacht to please her. Mrs. Grace, these things are known to everyone in the circle, they just don't dare bring it to Lynn's attention because of Mr. Gavin. My mom maintained her composure and warned her, "How my son-in-law is not for you to point fingers at. Even if my daughter divorces, she is still the LS heiress. You fear GS, but don't you dread our LS? Lynn's brother has already founded Shintian Capital. In the future, everything of LS will be inherited by Lynn. I advise everyone to see the road ahead clearly before taking sides, to avoid regrets later." She turned around, saw me, and her eyes instantly reddened. I supported my belly and walked over, soothingly patting her back, whispering, "Mom is awesome." She took me home, comforting me all the way. "I've watched Gavin grow up since he was little, there must be some other reason." Lynn, marital feelings need trust and joint effort from both sides to maintain. Mom hopes that no matter what happens, you listen to Gavin's explanation. She lovingly touched my face, "But Mom's baby, life is long, when we first meet someone, we can't foresee the future. If you meet the wrong person, Mom hopes you have the courage to cut losses in time, not to trap yourself in a wrong relationship and hurt yourself. You are the LS heiress, as long as LS stands, the slap in your hand can always be firmly delivered." I remembered what Dad said on my wedding day, "Lynn, remember, the ones who love the princess most in the world are not the prince, but the king and queen. At the time, I laughed at Dad for being childish, competing with Gavin for affection. Who knew years later, it would become a prophecy? Gavin hurried back 2 days later. As soon as he entered the door, he saw the photos I placed on the coffee table. In the photos, there were scenes of him protecting Vivian in his arms, him quietly watching Vivian by the hospital bed, and even him personally escorting Vivian home an hour ago. Next to the photos was a printed divorce agreement. Gavin's smile faded. Lynn, this joke isn't funny. Miss Vivian encountered troubles because I exiled her abroad. I was just expressing apology. You know, I would never betray you. Of course I knew, Gavin, when in love, always gave his all. If he wanted to cheat, he wouldn't hide it. He would first handle me, his wife, then openly embrace others. But he might not realize that when he starts getting curious about someone, unable to ignore her matters, changing heart isn't far off. Sadly, I looked at him and flipped open the divorce agreement. From the second page onward, it was all blank. The year I was pregnant with Leo, Gavin had a new female assistant, and we had a big fight over her. On a snowy night, I ran out in pajamas in anger. When Gavin found me at the gas station, he knelt on the ground and hugged my exposed, frozen calves. At the time, still shaken, he pressed his forehead against my leg, fearfully saying, "Lynn, please, in the future, no matter any misunderstanding, give me a chance to explain, okay? As long as you don't condemn me so quickly, I can always coax you." Gavin will never betray Lynn. I cried breathlessly and nodded heavily. Now Gavin was no longer that emotional youth. He was mature, steady, calm, and indifferent, no longer bowing to anyone. But I was still willing, for the passionate love of our youth, to give him a chance. Gavin, I don't know if I should salvage you. I do love you, but I have my pride too. If a marriage relies on one side constantly yielding and compromising to sustain, the feelings have already deteriorated. You say you're tired, but I'm tired too. Gavin sighed, sat beside me, and hugged me. Wife, you don't need to salvage me. You are my entire youth, I dare not imagine how I'd live without you. This time I was wrong, I'll handle it. Just watch what I do, okay? I grabbed his suit button, seriously saying, "This is really the last chance." He laughed, "Okay, last time, if I err again, punish me to sleep with a teddy bear forever." I self-deceptively whitewashed the piece. But at that time, I truly felt I couldn't leave Gavin. I didn't know how to sentence someone already fused into my blood and bones out of my life. However, only I knew what kind of days filled with anxiety those were. Every move of Gavin's, I couldn't help but suspect and doubt. Upon finding a trace, I'd immediately find excuses for him. Like a startled bird. Until that day, news of Gavin splurging on Vivian exploded again. The second shoe hanging over my heart finally dropped. I even calmly clicked on the news. The top-floor luxury apartment in the Circle's most prosperous area, worth billions, was revealed to be a gift from the GS president to win a beauty smile. In the blurry photos, Gavin and Vivian stood together in front of the building. He personally accompanied the beauty to view the property. I put down the phone, somewhat self-mockingly covering my face. Not just because my husband, who saw me as his life, really cheated. But because such big news exploding once could be an accident, but twice or thrice could only be Gavin's tacit approval. After all, which media dares to casually expose the GS president's material? He was showing his cards to me and testing my bottom line. This realization made my heart wrench like a knife. The phone on the sofa started buzzing. Without looking, I knew it was Mom, Dad, or brother. I didn't know how to tell them, so I silenced the phone. That afternoon, I took the already drafted divorce agreement to GS. Upon entering the president's office, unfortunately, the two parties in the news were arguing. "I told you not to provoke Lynn. Who told you to make small moves? You treat my words as wind past your ears. Who gave you the confidence?" Then came the girl's choking voice, "So I did it. Does Mr. Gavin have to kill me? I come from humble origins, but I know not to be a mistress." Yes, I want to force you to choose. Will you ban me again? I glanced at the embarrassed Brian nearby and pushed the door open to enter. Vivian, in a white dress, looked up stubbornly at Gavin. And Gavin's face was full of anger, but his eyes held faint helplessness. Once upon a time, every time I threw a tantrum, Gavin looked at me with the same helpless indulgence. And in the end, he would always compromise first. I scoffed. Miss Vivian doesn't need to be a mistress. I'm the sensible original wife here to make way for you. I waved the divorce agreement in my hand. Gavin pushed Vivian aside and walked toward me. Lynn, I said, if there's something, call me, I'll definitely come to explain. Your belly is so big, going out is dangerous. I brushed off his hand, faintly saying, it's useless, Gavin. This time, you can't coax me. I understand you better than you do yourself. You've changed heart. His lips moved slightly, but he was momentarily speechless. Seeing the divorce agreement in my hand, he frowned slightly, snatched it, and tore it without looking. Lynn, I'll accept whatever fuss you make, but divorce, I can't agree. I can promise you, neither physically nor mentally have I cheated. I have no feelings whatsoever for Miss Vivian. I didn't speak, but Vivian was already in tears. Then what was between us? You said being with me was relaxing, we drank and danced together, and at banquets, you allowed others to call me Mrs. Gavin. Doesn't that count as love? She looked at me, earnestly saying, Mrs. Gavin, this man has already drifted, you should cut losses in time. Gavin's face was ashen, he grabbed Vivian's arm and threw her out of the office. But I knew today was no longer suitable for discussing divorce. Gavin and I parted unhappily. On the way back, I received Leo's call. My young, strong-willed son hadn't cried this heartbrokenly in a long time. Mom, can you come pick me up from school? I fought with a classmate, his mom is fierce. But I wasn't wrong. Don't want Dad, Mom, come pick me up, okay? My heart sank. I knew it was likely Gavin's scandal had reached the school. There are only a few private elite schools, the students' families are mostly in the same circle, and news spreads quickly. In the past, as LS heiress and GS daughter-in-law, no one dared bully. But Gavin's news exploding was like handing people a knife. I rushed to the school, and sure enough, a classmate mocked Leo that he would soon have a new mom, laughing that the child born to the original wife would have tough days ahead. Leo was young and grew up showered with love. Mocked by classmates, he couldn't help but strike first. I protected my belly and argued reasonably with the other mom. Mrs. Zhou, whoever starts it bears full responsibility. No matter what step Gavin and I reach, my son is the most valued child of both families, not someone you can bully at will. You think GS can't back my son anymore? Fine, let me tell you, my big brother is already on his way. My brother Ethan, after university graduation, didn't join LS Group but founded Chintian Capital himself. It's developing rapidly and has become a new noble in the capital circle, highly regarded. Mrs. Zhou clearly retreated a bit. I pulled Leo, cautiously retreating to a safe distance. In case the other side got desperate, my 7-month pregnant belly was no match. But I guarded against Mrs. Zhou, not her son. The chubby boy around 10 charged fiercely, even though the bodyguard behind quickly supported me, it still disturbed the fetus. The office suddenly chaotic. I suppressed panic, forcibly calmly saying to the bodyguard, Xiao Zhou, calling 120 is too late, drive me to the hospital. Contact my brother, have the hospital prepare in advance. Blood soaked my skirt, Leo was scared pale. I held his hand, baby, don't be afraid, every mom bleeds when giving birth. Mom needs your encouragement now, go with Uncle Xiao Zhou to take Mom to the hospital, okay? But on the way to the hospital, Leo clutched my hand tightly, too scared to say a word. My brother arrived at the hospital first, seeing me covered in blood being carried out, his legs went weak from fright. I mustered strength to remind him, brother, take care of Leo, something's off with him. But brother, with red eyes, coaxed me, Lynn, don't be afraid, brother's here, you'll be fine. Until I was sent to the delivery room, no one could attend to Leo's emotions. Because the situation wasn't good, my brother kept pressuring the hospital, coordinating blood transfers, insisting they ensure my safety. The driver anxiously notified Gavin and my parents. And Leo shrank in the corner, trembling all over. He repeated, "Sorry, I'll never fight again, Mom, don't leave me." When Gavin arrived, the little second one didn't survive due to premature birth complications. It was a daughter. Everyone was very sad. Worried about me, they had no time for Leo, just had the bodyguard send him home. But no one noticed Leo blamed everything on himself. The sister he anticipated since Mom's belly was flat lost her chance to come to this world because of his impulsiveness. From then on, his small shoulders bore a life. This child grew up overnight. When I woke in the ward, opening my eyes, I saw a haggard Gavin. He knelt by the bed, holding my hand. "Sorry, Lynn, I was wrong, really wrong." My tears flowed instantly. Stubbornly, I asked, "Where's the child?" Gavin didn't speak. He lowered his head, forehead against my palm, tears flowing through my fingers. I broke down. "Gavin, are the child and I sacrifices to your affair? You knew I was almost in late pregnancy, why test me at this time? Why indulge Vivian's antics now? Why hurt my child? Get out, take your white moonlight and get out." Ignoring Gavin's family's opposition, with my weak body, I buried our little daughter in the cemetery with Leo. The angel had descended but returned to heaven due to Gavin's and my negligence. I was heartbroken. After discharge, I returned to LS. I began enduring the most difficult period of my life. Every day, I denied myself, denied everything past. I felt it was my poor judgment that killed my daughter. I often woke in breakdown and slept in despair. At the most painful times, I thought of suicide. But that afternoon, Leo suddenly came home early. He squatted by the bed, throwing the fruit knife far away. He said, "Mom, look at me, I'm sad too." I covered my face, sobbing. I lost my little daughter, but my eldest son was also greatly hurt. I hugged him. "Son, let's work together to overcome this hurdle." Later, I started learning business management, joined LS to work, striving to become strong. Leo gradually showed his sharp edges. He seized every opportunity to perform, participating in various competitions, occasionally seeking advice from the Gavin family patriarch through the butler. A year later, William assigned trusted aides to Leo, forming a small team to teach and assist him in entrepreneurship. And he would pick him up weekly to study at the old residence. Everyone started envying me for having a good son again. But only I knew that the son who would cling to me spoilingly, confiding everything, was killed in that afternoon of my difficult birth. Gavin often came to LS to find me, but was blocked by my parents. He also went to school to see Leo, but Leo never gave him a good face. On a sunny afternoon, I felt like I had walked out of the haze. So I took the divorce agreement again to GS. Gavin, getting the news, excitedly waited early downstairs at GS. On the bustling street, seeing the divorce agreement in my hand, he smiled miserably. "Lynn, I still say, I won't divorce." He pointed to his heart, desperately saying, "Kill me instead, don't do this to me." I calmly met his gaze, for a long time, then smiled faintly. "Gavin, this is your last chance to escape this marriage. If you don't sign today, later you'll beg me for divorce." He knelt on the ground in pain. "Lynn, what should I do for you to forgive me?" I deeply remember his humble, painful appearance then. But in the following 2 years, after repeated rebuffs, he gradually stopped appearing at LS. He and Vivian often made entertainment headlines. All about GS president heavily promoting actress Vivian, splashing money and resources on her. In the photographed pictures, Gavin changed from stern-faced to increasingly gentle. While I slowly took over LS, preparing my own affordable women's clothing brand. In the silent time, everyone thought I had accepted fate. Finally one day, Brian delivered the divorce agreement. I showed a genuine smile. The timing had come, hadn't it? If Gavin hadn't fallen for Vivian, my revenge wouldn't constitute harm. I gave them time to be together day and night. Time can heal all wounds, time can also make a man recognize his heart. I tore the divorce agreement in front of Brian. Want divorce? Let Gavin come talk to me personally. Brian relayed my words. Gavin personally came to LS 3 times with divorce agreements. I dragged it out with various reasons, not seeing him. He blocked me on the way to work, ambushed me at banquets. I refused to sign the agreement every time. The last time, he tiredly said, "Lynn, I promise you, no more other children. Everything of mine will ultimately belong to Leo. Losing our daughter, I'm in pain too, let's let each other go." He had lost a lot of weight, looking extremely dejected. But I smiled without speaking. 2 days later, GS received the court-served complaint copy. I had collected evidence and formally sued Vivian in court to return marital joint property. This time, Gavin tried to suppress the news but found he couldn't. On the court day, Vivian tried to absent the trial. I had people forcibly bring her to court. Let her see with her own eyes all transfer records, chat logs, transfer proofs, purchase photos, and affair evidence. She could no longer refute. Finally, the judge hammered. Upon review, it is found that Mr. Gavin, during the marriage, repeatedly gifted funds to extramarital female Ms. Vivian, infringing on plaintiff Ms. Lynn's property rights, violating mandatory legal provisions, hence the gifts are invalid. Therefore, defendant Vivian is ordered to return the gifted amounts and interest to plaintiff Lynn within 15 days after this judgment takes effect. If previous headlines were scandals, speculative guesses, then this trial was solid proof. Exiting the court, Gavin hurried over. Reporters swarmed, he pushed through the crowd, supporting the nearly shattered Vivian. His gaze at me was sharp as a knife. This time, I clearly saw the man who tearfully prayed at the wedding for heaven to give us a perfect ending, finally directing all his edges at me. I curled my lips. In a good mood, I made a gun gesture, aiming at them, mouthing "fuck you." Vivian could endure no more, she pushed Gavin away and walked toward me. "Lynn, you ruined my life. You're just good at being born, besides using power to oppress, what else can you do? People like you. Do you know how hard it is to study hard for 10 years, coming from a small county to establish in a big city?" In early autumn weather, she still wore a thin dress, looking helpless and fragile. The surrounding reporters eager for news felt some pity. I didn't expect, fallen to this state, this little green tea could still whitewash. I smiled. Grabbed her collar, dragged her to the camera lens. Gavin frowned slightly, stepping forward to block. "Lynn, what are you doing?" But he hurried from the bidding site, bringing only assistant and driver. Soon blocked by my bodyguards. I patted Vivian's face, smile not reaching my eyes, asked the netizens in front of the lens, how many studied hard for 10 years yet still can't live well? But did they interfere in others' families? Did they use tricks to hurt others? Saying I use power to oppress? You're questioning the justice of the law? This time you have to return up to $1 billion to me, and you say it's not easy? How was it, spending my money happily? The court's judgment echo lingered, she couldn't deny, finally covering her face and crying. No longer the arrogance of openly challenging me in Gavin's office. After appreciating Vivian's miserable state, I threw her to the ground. Bodyguard immediately handed wet wipes for me to clean hands. 3 years ago, Vivian, eager to rise, started openly provoking me. But I then lacked ability to confront GS, though LS behind me was also a tycoon. Tycoons are separated by chasms. Gavin indulged her yet dragged me, making me suffer those pains. LS became a laughingstock. I sniped them secretly for 3 years, but always like small skirmishes, quickly suppressed by Gavin. After lying low so long, finally made them suffer greatly. Vivian, from entertainment top starlet to now blacklisted online, even with Gavin as big backer, couldn't turn red again. During this, Gavin proposed divorce 7 times, I ignored all. Divorce, letting this adulterous pair unite, then who compensates my 2 children, 1 dead, 1 injured? Gavin, restrained by bodyguards, watching Vivian surrounded by reporters, veins bulging on his neck. He finally lost reason, sternly questioning, "Lynn, what right do you have to say that about others? You, a woman who had a child unwed in her teens, what good are you?" I paused slightly, turned to look at him. This is the person I loved in youth without seeking results or returns. Truly, waking at midnight wanting to slap myself twice, cursing my blindness. Reporters and paparazzi instantly excited. After all, scandals of two major tycoons are rare. I slightly tilted my head, aiming my best angle at the camera. Then closed eyes, a tear slid. I did have a child unwed. I failed my parents' education, giving you the chance to publicly humiliate me now. But I never regret passionately and sincerely loving in youth, even if wrong person, even if betrayed, even if hitting the wall. I treated sincerely, not because you deserve, but because I was originally a good girl. After saying, I put on sunglasses and turned to leave. Behind came Gavin's urgent, regretful voice, "Lynn, I didn't." But drowned in reporters' babble of questions. I got in the car. Assistant Lucas handed the tablet, worried, "Ms. Lynn, this wave of public opinion fermentation will surely plunge GS's image into crisis. Will the Gavin side act against LS?" I flipped through hot search terms. Sister so beautiful and sassy, this is how a tycoon heiress should be. 10 years hard study isn't reason to interfere in others' marriage. Sure enough, negative news about Gavin was suppressed. But Vivian nailed to the pillar of shame isn't unjust. This is just the beginning, hope they cherish current good life. I returned the tablet to Lucas, answering, "You think without William's tacit approval, this case could proceed to trial? Guess why this time, GS can't suppress the heat. Tycoon families value reputation, this time, the old man sacrificed greatly to play with me." I smugly winked, "Who made me mother poor but son noble?" Back home, I saw son Leo leading several people out. The 10-year-old boy in custom Zhongshan suit slightly tilted his head, walking while listening to reports behind. Looking cool and noble, yet well-mannered. I couldn't help sighing, worthy of the air personally cultivated by William. At 10, I was still spoiling behind father and brother. My son already mastered 5 languages, with shares in companies even I, his mom, don't know how many. Leo saw me, stopped the people behind from speaking. In his cool face, a trace of gentleness, "Mother." I lifted my skirt and ran over, hugging him, "Baby, let mom recharge." Surroundings instantly quiet. I knew without looking, Leo's serious expression must be cracking. Sure enough, he raised his hand, and others all retreated. Leo somewhat helplessly said, "Lynn, next time don't call me baby in front of outsiders. It makes it hard for me to do things." After growing up a bit, feeling I'm not much older, even less mature, he started calling my name directly. I picked at the exquisite embroidery on his clothes, fake crying. "Woo-woo, the son I carried for 10 months isn't close to me, what's the point of living, better die." He sighed lightly, patted my back, changing topic, "Did you have fun today?" I immediately straightened, eyes full of joy. "You didn't see how miserably I played that adulterous pair. My son is awesome, can back mom, your scum dad is suppressed by the old man, no match for me." Leo couldn't help laughing, showing tiger teeth. But quickly retracted, reminding, "Don't curse, Mr. Gavin is still New York GS's leader, representing the Gavin family's external face." I pouted, "What face is he? New York GS's true power is the old man's. And Leo now is William's recognized heir, just wait for him to grow a bit to rival Gavin." Leo, seeing my unconvinced face, pinched my cheek, "Lynn, be good. This won't greatly affect GS, Mr. Gavin is still pivotal in New York, don't clash head-on. But the results you want, I'll let you see." Taking advantage of the tycoon dog blood love triangle heat, I strongly launched my affordable women's clothing brand. Sure enough, sold out online and offline. The whole net discussed what marriage brings to women. I personally went live to share experiences with girls. Actually, today when I've long given up on Gavin, I still don't understand why he cheated. After all, the years of consistent passionate love weren't fake. I'm far from old and faded. When first noticing his change, I even checked Gavin's physical report, forced his assistant if there were hidden reasons. But hurt by answers repeatedly. Later realized, no one suddenly stops loving, you just suddenly know. My sincere sharing unexpectedly boosted LS stock prices. LS Group's official account gained 10 million followers, various products sales hit historical highs. After fermenting a while, Vivian's studio finally posted amid curses, announcing Vivian's permanent exit from entertainment. On our daughter's 3rd death anniversary, I saw Gavin at the cemetery. Dawn breaking, he stood fixed before the grave, dude, as if standing all night. Seeing me, he sighed lightly. Lynn, from start to end, I never touched Vivian. At first, I did treat her as diversion. In front of you, I always yielded, as if bearing 2 lives alone. I really felt tired. I didn't think of anything with Vivian, just her dancing resembled you 10 years ago. Her arrogant manner always reminded me of you in childhood. Later, daughter not saved, sad not just you, I was painful too. No matter how much I drank, I'd wake startled at night. I thought, erase this memory, then love others fine. But when pampering others like you, my mind full of memories about you. In this life, no more strength to love another like this, I accept fate, so I endure every stab from you. But Vivian implicated by me, now punished deservedly, let her go. I bent, placed the bouquet before the grave. No photo on the tombstone, I touched the words, saying in heart. Mom's baby grew another year. Mom and brother are beautiful, baby in heaven must be the prettiest little angel. Be sure to live happily with other little angels. After, I stood, walked toward stairs. Gavin stepped forward, grabbed my wrist, hoarsely calling, Lynn. He panicked explaining, before at court, I misspoke, I'm immensely grateful you bore Leo at 18, you and he are my most precious coming-of-age gifts. You can keep hating me, but can you forgive that day's slip? Suddenly noise behind. Gavin and I looked simultaneously. Saw Vivian running over disheveled. She looked bad, exposed neck and arms scarred. Seeing Gavin holding my hand, her taut expression collapsed. Why I did this for you, yet you still think of Lynn. Why am I the one suffering all this? Gavin, why provoke me, give hope but can't protect? I just loved someone, did I commit heavenly crime? After roaring, softened crying, Gavin, come back with me, I only have you. Gavin's eyes full of fatigue, but his blocking hand didn't move. Vivian, I'll give you money, leave New York. Lucas came behind, whispering, Ms. Lynn, Ms. Wen wants come back, privately contacted famous director. That's not a good person. Saves our next plan. Gavin turned to me, eyes watery, Lynn, let Vivian go. Just, for the sake of over 20 years' feelings. I knew him too well. He couldn't be ruthless to Vivian, like in childhood, every time I cried, he surrendered. He did have true feelings for Vivian but dared not admit. As if loving another sullied the long, grand love of youth. Pathetic and ridiculous. I wanted to sarcasm, but promised son to ignore him henceforth. Sometimes ignoring hurts more than hating. So I held back all retorts, turned to leave. Gavin stunned in place, after a while, finally enraged by me, Lynn, if you hate me so, why not divorce? Let me go, please let me go. I surrender, I fucking Gavin surrender. I turned back, sneered, you trampled my feelings, hurt my children, misused marital property, and want to retreat intact for new happiness? Dream on. Gavin, remember, as long as daughter's matter isn't over in my heart, you and Vivian won't get happiness this lifetime. After saying, couldn't help slapping myself mentally. Then, Leo slowly came up the stairs. Many bodyguards behind, representing his rising status in William's heart. Stepping on the last stair, his gaze fell on me, then distant Gavin, frowning slightly. Lynn, come to me. I obediently went. Leo still in low-key Zhongshan suit, quietly confronting his father. His stature not yet as tall as Gavin's, but his sharp aura showed his stance. Mr. Gavin, many GS shareholders continuously reducing shares, you shouldn't be here now. Gavin's expression complex. He deeply looked at me and Leo. Eyes with love, hate, regret, dejection. Then wordless, turned and left from the other side, not even caring for Vivian. His back desolate, as if lost everything. Yet gradually overlapping with the childhood neighbor boy holding my hand to school. I recalled a poem from school, henceforth the world is vast, north-south coming going, no meeting you. If at 3 when I ran away, he didn't run to hold my hand, how good. Bodyguards took collapsed Vivian away. Leo walked to the tombstone, slowly pulling a smile. Sister, brother came to see you. He stood quietly a while, then turned, extending hand, Mom, let's go home. My nose suddenly soured. When daughter was 3 months in belly, Leo once pasted to my belly giggling. My brother teased, want brother or sister? But Leo's small face serious, solemnly, I want Mom. The pampered daughter had its own armor. Henceforth fearing no storms.